So I thought I'd take a minute to share with you a quick story, but more importantly, do it in a timely manner, because I know I have the tendency of, if I don't be short and concise, I can rant on forever. So I'm going to give myself a timer of 10 minutes to share with you a story based upon value and just some of my thoughts in regards to all these pieces of papers that's floating around. So as you guys can see here, I have a variety of countries as well as denominations and a lot of other things as well. So I'm going to be short and concise, but the title of this video, as you guys can see, is called The Pillars of Value. And so I thought I would just take a minute, share with you some thoughts real quickly based upon these papers here, but more importantly, link in a story with value. So this past week, I was actually out delivering some goods. And so for those that don't know, I sell these cash gold notes here on the RTD store. And so in selling these notes here, I was actually at the FedEx place, and it was kind of windy, and I received a phone call. So I had my hands full. Long story short, tried to answer the call. Wind blew. I dropped these notes. They took off across the parking lot. So in order to not lose on value of these notes here, I basically tucked everything away, went chasing after everything, and ended up recovering all of these notes. And the things that were of less value to me, I let them float. And so things that were less value were just papers or whatnot that really had no importance to me overall. So that was my concept of, let me share this story of value and tie it into a couple other things based upon an event that just happened to me, because it had my heart pounding and all that other stuff that I was going to lose out on some value. So long story short, there's a couple things I want to share with you, but more importantly, give you a rundown as to what's in front of me here. So here I have Argentina pesos, 100 and a 50 piece. I have Guatemala Gonzales in front of me here. I have, what are these? These are Chile pesos. I have Uruguay pesos. I have Mexican pesos. I have Costa Rican colones rather. I have euro. And more importantly, my favorite of all time, here I have the Zimbabwe notes that expired about a decade ago of high denomination. So that being the case, very first one, I want to make sure I cover it in a short time frame. So value. What is value? So it's a question. What is value? So I actually looked it up, but it basically meant the usefulness or the what is something worth to you. Value. So what is actually something, what is it used for, and what is it of worth to you? And so basically we all know that we get up every day and go to work, and we go to work for, and here in the United States of America, a Federal Reserve note, aka a dollar. And so it has value to us because it is also legal tender, and it's something we acquire to take care of our daily needs and goods, and we also save in these things. But as you guys see from my further explanation of value, that might not be the best option, especially in the days ahead. So because of all this, the next thing plays into the fact of, with value, what are you actually missing out on if you retain these pieces of paper solely? Purchasing power. So basically, holding on to legal instruments or debt notes from your government here, you tend to lose value. And a great example would be right now what's happening in Argentina. So right now this is 150 pesos, but yet when I received these notes several years ago, the purchasing power for these notes were a lot higher, a lot greater in relevance to the dollar. But as of today, because of everything that's happening there, the IMF is basically lending them money. The government will basically use those dollars to purchase these notes here, which basically prolongs the life of them a little bit longer, but it further jeopardizes the value of these notes, because once again, these are isolated currencies that nobody really needs other than those in Venezuela and Argentina. So basically, when I first received this was about the equivalent of $30. Today, this is approximately maybe $2 or $3.50 in value to me. So purchasing power has been gone. So the next thing I want to talk about, some actual value pieces and how to actually gauge value for yourself. And so what I want to do, I got 4 minutes. I'm on 4 minutes. Okay, so very first one I want to talk about is just face value. Face value. That's a way of measuring value for some. So face value here, we have a single dollar. So the face value on this is $1. So it says $1. We know and understand what face value means based upon the numbers when you go to purchase something. So going to purchase something, if something costs $5, you know you need 5 of these. So you have a denomination of 1 that in and of itself used to have value. So this $1 number, say 60 years ago, was equivalent to almost an hour's wage, or a lot less, or more so. But now here we have Zimbabwe face value. So here we have a $25 billion note that expired because of hyperinflation. But this note was created in May of 2008. May 15, 2008, this note was created. And we can see that since that time, this note has expired. So it's no longer a value. So the face value is irrelevant, because if you're a billionaire, so there's a lot of billionaires in Zimbabwe, because this number, this face value said 25 billion. But face value, if it doesn't purchase anything, if it doesn't have any purchasing power, it's of little use to you. So just an idea of face value. Next one here. Let's go to perceived value. So perception. So basically when you look at these currencies here, depending on what part of the world you're living in, there's a perception of value. So for example, once again, in Argentina, for example, when I first received this note years and years ago, the perceived value was, man, this is close to a $100 bill. At that time, it was relatively close to a $100 bill. And I think the exchange ratio was 3-to-1. So basically, I would take a $100 bill, US, and I would get 3 of these roughly. And that was equivalent at that time of taking one of these $100 notes, 100 peso notes, and going to Walmart and actually filling up my grocery cart with goods and services, because this thing had perceived value still. It was worth something. But now, as I mentioned, this thing here is literally $3. So the perception of that in terms of looking at that number and what it can purchase is no longer there. And then to take it home even further, here in the US, where this note still spins, if you had a $100 bill, it would say 100, the perception is like, man, this is $100. You can do a lot with that. But more importantly, if you were to lose a $100 bill as opposed to a $1, so if I had a $100 bill here, a $1 bill here, and if I lost this one, I will pay it no mind. There wouldn't be much of an emotional connection or pit my stomach of having lost this. But I also lost a $100 bill before, and when you lose a $100 bill, there's that subtle moment of like, man, I just lost a $100 bill because of the amount of time, energy, and everything it took to accumulate that one piece of paper. Perception and the emotion attached with it came into play. So let's move on to the next one. Looking at my clock here, I got to make sure I stay somewhat short. Third one, let's go to nominal value. Okay, so nominal value, best example would be this right here. So here we have $25 billion. And so you would think that, man, if everybody here, and we're taught in the US to strive to be a millionaire. So there's a lot of books and programs and stuff that tells people, if you want to be a billionaire, be a millionaire. The goal should be to be a millionaire. How much money do you need to retire? Would $1 million help you? Okay, nominal value. So that's basically saying that if you have if you have 1 million pieces of paper of this kind here, you'll be secure or comfortable or able to live out your dreams and everything like that in a long-term sense, where this piece of paper here, which is also labeled a dollar, here, this is a $50 trillion note. And this is not even the biggest note. These notes getting bigger. So here, Zimbabwe is a great example of what nominal value could mean, but yet also not be able to do much for you because of purchasing power. So nominal value, the amount, the number in your bank account, the number that you think is ideal for you to possess in order to carry out your retirement and things of that nature, can be very deceiving, because if your currency isn't worth anything, you can have a $50 trillion bill in your pocket. I actually carry, I think, a $50 million note in my wallet just as a reminder, and I share with people, hey, a million may not be a million if a million can't purchase anything. And so here, nominal value, based upon the amount you have or accumulated, may be very deceiving, especially if your currency isn't worth anything. And so a lot of these currencies here, like this, for example, pretty soon Argentina is going to be adding a 0 or 2 when their hyperinflation, when their inflation picks up, especially the end of this year, next year, in my opinion. So once again, nominal value, the amount you have may not be of worth to many for much longer. And so looking at the clock at 9:30. The very last one I want to share with you is what I think is more important out of all this stuff up here on the table, and it's intrinsic value. And so intrinsic value, if you look at all these pieces of paper here, none of them, apart from one, has any intrinsic value. So what is intrinsic? Basically saying what's in it. I mean, what is it composed of? What's the composition? What's the composition of the note? What is it made up of? So here we have all these papers here that you see are they're cotton fiber blends. And so here we have the Gonzalez here. The Colones is this is Costa Rica. This is a nice plastic piece of paper. It's, real pretty and shiny. Got a little see-through. You can see through it right here. It has all the look of value, but yet it's plastic and paper. Whatever the chemical composition of this is, it doesn't really help this bill out at all. And so here, apart from this note here, which is a cotton blend and all that type of stuff right here, beyond the fact that this is the current reserve currency of the world, it in of itself is not really of value because it costs maybe 5 cents, 2 cents, 3 cents. Don't know off the top of my head, but if somebody know, leave a comment down below. But more importantly, intrinsically, the cotton and the wood and the paper, all that put into this with the ink, I think the ink is worth more than the paper itself, but it gives it an intrinsic value based upon what's chemically put into this of 5 cents. But on the other hand, what we have here, this piece of paper here is a silver certificate. This was once in circulation, still is legal tender, but because of its intrinsic nature now as a historical piece, this piece of paper here will probably get you maybe $8, $9, $10, depending on the condition of it, because it's more historical. But it too had value because you could actually redeem this at one time. So as you see, it says $1 in silver payable to the bearer on demand. So this was a receipt to the actual money that was in the vaults of whatever the bank might have been that you could have gone to and actually acquired your money and gave them back their paper. And so as you guys see, same look, a little bit older, same design, everything's the same, but yet if you look at the fine print, I hope you guys can see it, it says this note is legal tender for all debts public and private. This certificate is legal tender for all debts public and private. Note, certificate, redeemable, an instrument, a debt instrument, a note, car note, mortgage note, bank note, whatever. See the difference. So this was the closest we had here as having intrinsic value outside of actually having physical gold and silver. But that's changed. Of course, everyone knows the historical aspects of that. If you don't, watch some of my other videos, you'll get a better chance of understanding that. So we got 12 minutes and 30 seconds. So what has intrinsic value? And that's where I want to get into just the importance of, as you guys can see right here, I have a gold piece. It says 1 gram of gold right here. So this 1 gram note is of value because it has 1 gram in it. So this 1 gram here gives it value. Intrinsically this is money. This is value in and of itself because of, here we have, I'll actually share it with you. I'll go to a different page. This has value because of the intrinsic nature of it. We have the purity of it. We have the weight of it, the fineness of it. These 3 things here gives intrinsic value to this element right here. Because here we have intrinsic. And so here are some categories that gives it value in of itself. So this piece of gold right here has value intrinsically because of these categories right here, outside of the fact that it is considered money. It has been money for the longest. But with just this piece of gold right here, the purity of it, 24 karat. So 24 karat, the greatest standard or the greatest purity quality of gold that we are aware of, to my knowledge. And then here we have just 1 gram. So 1 gram, it gives you the actual weight of this. And then the fineness of this, what is the context of it? What's the actual total chemical composition of it? So here we have, as it says on it, it gives you all the standards to what makes this of value. And so here it says 0.9999. So that right there gives this piece of gold, just 1 gram, its intrinsic value. 24 karat, 1 gram, 0.99 fine gold. So here we have paper here. These are what we use for circulation amongst ourselves, for bit savings, you name it. But as you see, when it comes to these pillars here, the face value, these meet the bar. Perceived value, based upon faith and confidence, And more importantly, faith and confidence in this note here is how value is perceived as well as utilized. Then we have nominal value. So, of course, if you got a $100 bill in the U.S., you feel good. You got a $100 bill as a U.S. citizen going to Argentina, it doesn't really hold much value to you in a nominal sense. But more importantly, for those in Zimbabwe, they probably have the most recent story of how face value in of itself is not really what it might seem on the surface. And so nominal value, of course, this nominal value here is very high. You know, is this person here who had this, I bought this off the internet. This person had $50 trillion. So they were definitely well beyond the $1 million status. But yet, once again, if it doesn't purchase anything, you don't really have much in your possession. And so out of all these pieces of paper up here, all these legal tender notes up here, none of them have actual value until you get into something that has intrinsic value. And so to go to intrinsic value, that's where this cash gold note comes into play. So here we have the 1 gram cash gold note. And so it's the equivalent of taking this small little bit of fineness. It's so wiry thin. You take this piece of gold here and you chop it up 10 layers. You take it 10 layers off of it, that'll give you 0.1 gram. And then you take that 0.1 piece of a sliver of this and you infuse it into the note here. And so that, you see how it's almost, if this is thin, you got to get very, very microscopic with this one to be able to put this in here. But when it comes to all these characteristics of value intrinsically, purity, we have 24 karat, weight, we have 0.1 gram, and fineness of gold, 999.9 with a weight of 0.1 G. And so intrinsically, this note here, or this issue of a piece of paper, same fabric as probably this. Only difference is when it comes to meeting these standards of value, there's only one out of all these here that actually qualifies as being something that retains value. So face value, it's I would say it's equivalent of say $6-7, give or take wherever you're at. Perceived value, gold is always perceived as being valuable. Nominal value, 0.1 gram, you can say that 0.1 gram, that's minor, but in comparison to some of these things here, and definitely in comparison to this, I don't think you'll miss out by having one of these. And then intrinsic value, we know that intrinsically, if you surgically, microscopically cut up this thing into 10 slices, it's really fine. If you take this and you cut off 0.1 of it and put it inside this paper to where it's inside of here, it's embedded inside, that gives it intrinsic value in and of itself. So this meets all these qualifications, whereas as you guys can see, this one doesn't. So just want to take a quick minute to share with you my thoughts on the pillars of value. Would definitely love to find out what you think about this. I'm well over my time allotment, but hey, I did the best I could to keep it short and concise. Leave a comment back down below. Let me know your thoughts. More importantly, if you guys are interested in finding out about these, you also can click the link down below as well, and in the smallest form imaginable or possible, in my opinion. So love to hear your thoughts and comments. Definitely leave below. Other than that, these are the pillars of value. Thanks.